All right, now let's see how we can debug our TypeScript applications in VS Code. This is very useful when things go wrong and our code doesn't work as expected. So we can run our code line by line and see what exactly happens under the hood. There are a few steps we need to follow. First, we go to tsconfig.json, and here in the emit section, we enable the source map feature. So a source map is a file that specifies how each line of our TypeScript code maps to the generated JavaScript code. Let me show you. So back to the terminal, let's recompile our code. Good. Now look into this folder. We have a new file called index.js.map. This is our source map. So if you look over here, you see some code that specifies how our TypeScript code maps to our JavaScript code. Now, this is not for us to understand. This is for debuggers. It's for machines, okay? So let's close this file. Now, to make debugging more interesting, let's go to index.ts and write some logic. We can say if age is less than 50, we're going to add 10 to it, okay? Now we're going to click on the first line to insert a breakpoint. So when we start debugging, the execution stops right at this line, at this breakpoint. From this point forward, we can execute our code line by line, okay? Now we go to the debug panel and click on create a launch.json file. Now from this dropdown, we select node.js, and this creates a new file called launch.json in our project. I'll show you that in a second. So this is a JSON file with some configuration that tells VS Code how to debug this application. So we're going to use node to launch this program. And here we have a label called launch program, which you will see in a second. And we can see our program starts here. So in the source folder, we have index.ts, and our output files are stored in our workspace in our project in files with the JS extension. Now here we need to add one more setting. It's called pre-launch task. We're going to set this to a string with this value, tsc colon space build space hyphen space tsconfig.json. Make sure to type this out exactly as I've shown you here. All these spaces matter, okay? So with this setting, we're telling VS Code to use the TypeScript compiler to build our application using this configuration file, okay? Now, we go back to index.ts, and to start debugging, we can go to the debug panel and click on launch program. This is the label that I just showed you. Now look at the shortcut. It's F5. I always prefer to use shortcuts. So let's start debugging. Good. Now our program started and the execution stopped right on this line at this breakpoint. Now on the top, we have a bunch of tools for executing our code. We have step over for executing one line. We have step into for stepping into a function. Currently, we don't have any function, so it's not useful. We also have step out. This is useful for stepping outside of a function. We have restart and stop. So in the tooltip that you see in front of each tool, you can see the shortcut. So the shortcut for stepping over a line is F10. Let's press that. So this line was executed. Now on the left side, under variables, you can see all the variables that are detected in this debugging session. So under local, we have age that is set to 20. As we execute each line, you'll see the value of this variable getting updated. Now, if there's something that you don't see in the variables window, you can go to the watch window and insert a watch. So we're going to watch the age variable. Currently it's 20. So let's step over this line. Now we're on this line. So let's step over this as well. Now age got updated, but because our program terminated, we don't see its value anymore. But if you add one extra line here, let's say console.log age. Let's start the debugging session one more time by pressing F5. Now step over F10, 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 and now age is 30. So this is debugging in VS Code. It's very useful when things go wrong. We can start our program and execute it line by line. All right, now that we're done with debugging, we can stop the debugging session right here. So that brings us to the end of this section. Starting from the next section, we're going to explore TypeScript in detail.